Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/your20-minute podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now, here's your host, David Brower.
Thanks, Allan. This is David Brower, and our special guest today is Joshua Shea, who wrote the book, The Addiction Nobody Will Talk About, How I Left My Pornography Addiction, How I Let My Pornography Addiction Hurt People and Destroy Relationships. Joshua, pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. How's the world of Maine today?
The world of Maine is cold and icy, and I can't think of a better thing than springtime around the corner.
There you go. Well, the title of your book is so spot on, The Addiction Nobody Will Talk About. And we talked a little bit before we started recording about, we have these conversations in our church. We have these conversations in our men's Bible study. We have these conversations amongst friends sometimes. And they kind of, sort of, a little bit admit there's an issue, which really means, oh my God, we got to figure out a way to help you handle this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we, at least in the United States, have a really poor track record of getting ahead of our cultural scourges. And pornography addiction, if you look at the statistics and how it's grown over the last 10, 15 years and projecting out where it will go, it's some scary stuff. I just saw a statistic recently that said that just over 30% of men between the ages of 18 and 30 believe they may have a pornography addiction.
Oh my gosh.
Think about that. That's 1 in 3 men between 18 and 30 may be addicted to this stuff. And we know this right now, much like you can go back and watch Dragnet on Nick at Night from the 1960s.
Sure. And
they're talking about what a problem heroin is there. Or you can go back and listen to rappers in the 1980s and early 90s talking about abusing Vicodin. You can't say the opioid crisis snuck up on us. It didn't.
No, that's right.
We were really late to reacting. Much like 6 months ago, it's not like 6 months ago sexual harassment just started in the workplace.
Right.
It's not like 10 years ago bullying just started in schools. We have a horrible track record of being a reactive society and not a proactive society. And that's why I wrote The Addiction Nobody Will Talk About, to put my story out there and let people know a lot of people have this story, and we have to start addressing it.
Good for you. And I think the thing that I like about what you just said is oftentimes we look at statistics or we hear the 18-second soundbite and we go, oh, not me, oh, not my family, oh, not my friends, oh, not my whatever. But until you really get exposed to a true, actual story that you can sink your teeth into, does that really kind of help make a home run that you go, oh, my God, really?
Yeah, well, I had a close friend who I remember a couple years back found out he had cancer. And so thankfully he's okay now.
Good.
But he said to me, you never think of this. You never worry about it. You just know that it happens to other people, but it's never going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And I bet you anything that, my parents, my close friends, other family members, when they found out, when I got in trouble with the law, when they found out about my porn addiction, I bet suddenly they had to completely reevaluate, oh my goodness, this does happen to real people I know.
Yeah.
And I was even somebody who said, oh my Lord, this happens to people and this happened to me. It's scary.
Yeah.
But if we don't start talking about it, I can only wonder where things are going to head.
Absolutely. And the internet obviously makes it exponential. I mean, it's just...
Oh, right. Well, I think I'm turning 42 years old here next week.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm in the very last of the last generation who got hooked on magazines and VHS videotapes.
Yeah, there you go. I had Sears catalogs and the 1953 Playboy. So
yeah, but now you can get any level of any genre of anything you want with the click of a button.
Yep, absolutely. I was thinking the other day when I saw this Victoria's Secrets commercial, and I'm going, man, when I was a kid, that was pornography. I mean, that was get my butt whipped and go back in the closet, you know?
Yeah.
And now they show all this stuff on TV, and it's just it just boggles my mind.
That, how our minds have not evolved, and our physical DNA and makeup has not evolved in 50 years to any measurable level. Yet the amount that we allow this stuff into society and into our homes and tolerate it, it's just exponential. We can't keep up physiologically.
Yep, absolutely right. So you're a freelance writer. You're a former magazine publisher, city councilor. You were like the, by all appearances, the people would see you walking up and down the street. Man, now there's a guy that's got it together.
Oh yeah,
right?
Everybody knew who I was, and
yeah.
Everybody thought that I was on top of the world, and they cared what I had to say, and it was a very, very carefully crafted facade that I put on for everybody.
And how did you break that facade? What caused you? What was the epiphany or the?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I couldn't keep it up anymore because too many pieces of my life were imploding. Along with a pornography addiction I've had since I was a teenager, I also have been an alcoholic. There are some mental health issues with me as well. I was diagnosed bipolar in my 20s. And what was happening to me in 2013 was that my magazine had been around for quite a while. So it was no longer the new hip thing. The revenue started to fall. There started to be some problems internally. And I made the very horrible decision to pull myself off of my psych meds with the idea that if I could tap into my manic side, I'd have enough energy and I'd have enough drive to turn things around. Unfortunately, what happened was that the alcohol use and the porn use spiked because I needed to cope with my issues.
Yeah.
I needed to somehow deal with the anxiety and stress that was going on. This led to a isolation from my wife and my kids. I stopped taking care of myself physically, mentally. It was one of these perfect storm type situations, and I entered into a very critical phase of pornography addiction where I made the leap from just passively watching videos online to actually beginning to interact with women in chat rooms. And one woman that I interacted with ended up being a teenage girl. And about 5 months after that happened, the Maine State Police showed up at my door with a search warrant for my computers. And 22 months later, I started a 6-month jail sentence. That was in 2016. But I tell you,
wow,
I am the luckiest guy in the world that they showed up at my door, because I only give even odds that I'd even be here alive to talk to you if they hadn't.
Right.
I needed a massive intervention on so many levels. And my friends and family taking me aside wasn't going to do anything. I needed something like that. In the 22 months between my arrest and my sentencing, I went to 2 inpatient rehabs, one for 10 weeks for alcohol in California, one for 7 weeks for sex and porn addiction in Texas. Hundreds of hours, if not thousands, of one-on-one therapy and group therapy, 12-step groups, and just in reading a hell of a lot about it, just trying to learn as much as I could and develop tools that I could move forward in my life and not have to rely on alcohol or pornography as tools to get through life anymore. And I'm very proud to say I'm going to be approaching 4 years here in a couple months.
Wow. High fives all around the room, man. Congratulations. That's
thank you.
From going to, I mean, it feels like everybody talks about, well, you got to hit bottom. Well, I hit bottom. And
yeah, you know what? I don't think I think hitting bottom is death. I don't think anybody has to hit rock bottom. Could it have? I guess I could have got worse. I can always throw, more gas on the fire.
Sure.
what I'm trying to do with this book and in talking to people on a show like yours is to let them know that however bad it is now, it can stop. It can turn around today. It doesn't have to get worse. Because, I look at it the same way I look at recovery.
Yeah.
People say life is not about, the destination. It's about the journey. And recovery is all journey, because at the end of it, you breathe your last breath.
Right.
But up until then, it's all about recovery.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, once addicted, always addicted, right? You're always working towards maintaining.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a much easier time handling any cravings or handling any triggers today than I did 3 years ago. And I assume 3 years from now, it'll be a little bit easier.
Right.
But addiction changes your brain chemistry. That's why it's a disease.
Yeah.
It actually is a physical disease, and I'm always going to have to cope with it. And I, have a naturally addictive personality anyway, so I have to make sure that, I don't now get addicted to food or gambling or video games or whatever else it is.
Right.
Because I can look through my life and see other addictions along the way. My work was a huge addiction.
Yeah.
And there were times earlier, I collected baseball cards when I was a teenager. I had over 200,000, and I needed to have the most because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And it became an obsession and an addiction. I moved on from it, but I moved on to other things. And that's really what I have to watch out for, is not just falling off the pornography or the alcohol bandwagon, but not jumping and becoming cross-addicted to something else.
That's part one of my interview with Joshua Shea.
Your 20-minute podcast with David Brower has been brought to you by Audible. You can listen to any of David's podcasts anywhere podcasts can be found, including iHeartRadio, the Spotify mobile app, and at davidbrowervo.com/your20-minute podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.